Let's look at this text which describes the development of a hospital through diagrams. And we're going to look at the passive voice and identify errors and how to fix them. Okay, so let's start with the first paragraph, the introduction. Across 3 diagrams is showed the development of the Queen Mary Hospital over the course of 4 decades. So we have this first passive verb, and immediately there's a small mistake. And this is something, of course, you need to review if you're not sure of, because remember that the passive voice is the verb to be with the past participle, and the past participle of show is actually irregular. It's shown. Okay, so this is a mistake. Now, one thing to notice is that in this case, when we have a preposition with a noun, prepositional phrase, at the beginning of a sentence, especially location, often the subject follows the verb. Right? We have the verb subject. And since development is singular, is correct. Okay, so look out for that as well. Okay, next sentence. During this time, additional medical services were added to the hospital's basic care. Well, during this time tells us that it's in the past, okay, from the previous 4 decades. And so we have the verb to be in the past, were, right? Were agrees with medical services in the plural. That's good. And then we have added, which is the regular form of the past participle, ed, right? So that's fine. Okay. Next paragraph. In 1960, when Queen Mary Hospital was first built, yeah, that looks okay. In the past, it was consisted of 1 building. So be careful here. There's certain verbs that we don't use in the passive. Okay, and consisted of is one of them. So don't put the verb to be there. Just say it consisted of. So obviously one of the things you have to think about when you're using the passive is whether you should use the active form of the verb or the passive. And we'll look at some more examples of that. Beside it stood a shopping center, while behind it a large parking lot was situated. Okay, was situated? Yes, that's right. Okay, was located. Okay. Diagonally across from the hospital was only farmland that were left undeveloped. Here we have a problem. We've got the passive voice, were left, but were, it's correct that it's in the past, but here it's plural. The subject is that, and that refers to farmland, which is singular. So were is incorrect. It should be that was left undeveloped. So when you're using the passive voice, often you'll have to check for subject-verb agreement as well. Make sure there are no mistakes with that. Next paragraph. By 1980, major changes had taken place in the vicinity of the hospital. The shopping center had been replaced by a medical center. Okay, so in this case, notice the use of had been for the verb to be because of this by 1980. So 1980 is in the past, and then these actions like replace happened before 1980. So we're using the past perfect with the passive. So all we do is we put the verb to be in the past perfect, had been, and then we use the past participle. Okay, and that looks fine. Yeah. The shopping center had been replaced by a medical center that was dedicated to the treatment of cancer. Okay, in the sense that it's specialized in the treatment of cancer. And this is a kind of a passive verb. We use it in the past here because it was dedicated not only before 1980, but at the time of 1980 as well. In addition, a pharmacy attached to the west wing of Queen Mary. Well, this is an issue. So we have to look at this kind of verb and ask, did the subject, or does the subject, do the action of the verb? So we have a pharmacy, okay, a drugstore, and does it do the action of attached to? And it seems not, right? The administrators, the hotel planners attached the pharmacy, the builders attached the pharmacy to the west wing, but the pharmacy itself didn't do the action of attached. So this is a key difference when you're deciding whether to use the passive or not. Did the subject do the action, Yes, use an active verb. Did the subject receive the action? Use a passive verb. Okay. So since we were using past perfect, we use past perfect again. A pharmacy had been attached to the west wing of Queen Mary. Okay. The car park remained at its original size behind the hospital, but in place of the agricultural land, a large nursing school had been established. Okay, so the nursing school didn't do the action of establish, someone established it. So this is correct. Had been established, passive voice. Okay, good. Next paragraph. 20 years later, both continuity, continuing, and transformation were evident at Queen Mary Hospital. The original building and the linked pharmacy did not experience any changes. Okay. However, the cancer center had grown. Yes. Okay. So in this case, we don't use the passive. A center can grow. It can do that action of growing. So active verb is fine. Had grown to triple its size and expanded, partly into where the nursing school had stood. Okay. The school, in contrast, had reduced in size by half. So here's another good example where you have to ask yourself, did the school do the action of reduce? Okay. And we could say, probably someone reduced the school in size. Okay. And also another thing to look out for is a direct object. When you use the verb reduce in the active voice, you expect an answer of reduce what? Okay, but we don't have a direct object here. And so this also kind of points us towards the passive voice. Okay, the school had been, okay, the verb to be in the past perfect had been reduced in size by half. So that's not quite right when we use it in the active voice. Okay, next sentence. Likewise, the parking area behind the hospital had been lost, about half its area. Aha, well, you see here, half its area is the direct object. And so in this case, we would expect this to be an active verb. So no had been, no verb to be, had lost. And the hospital can lose half its area. That makes sense from a meaning point of view. So the previous one needed passive voice. This one doesn't need passive voice. It's active. Had lost about half its area. So think about the direct object as well. Often when you have a direct object, you don't use the passive because the direct object actually becomes the subject in the passive voice, if you recall. Okay, last paragraph, which is the conclusion. In summary, the Queen Mary Hospital complex witnessed, saw tremendous development between the years 1960 to 2000. Interestingly, however, the main hospital building itself was not enlarged during the 40-year period in question. So this looks like a passive verb, but there's one problem. You might notice it. Enlarge isn't a past participle, right? The verb to be in the past is fine, okay, but we need, in this case, an ed ending for the past participle. Was not enlarged during the 40-year period in question. Okay, so I hope that kind of raises your awareness about some of the typical things to look out for in terms of looking for mistakes with passive voice verbs and how to fix them. Yeah, so give the free editing activity, give the guided editing activity a shot, and then check the answers in the video. Good luck.